Well, there's something I need to be candid about. I just need to be open about this experience because of what I just uploaded. If I may have the attention of some of you who happen to come across this video, is essentially last night I feel like I have I have an opportunity to talk about. I have like sort of a moral, like a moral duty to talk about it. In fact, because of the nature of what I just made artistically, the one that said planetary vibrations, intentional raising of planetary vibrations. Um, so what's going on with that is last night it really felt like, not even seemed like, it just was. It felt like there was essentially a shakedown. There was an attempt to hijack, you might say, the essence, the core, the seed, the significance of all that work entailed that I did. It was intentionally for, as it said in the description, dedication to God, getting in touch with the divine, establishing positive bridges cosmically, as stands here in the earth, manifesting. Um, Intensive work, joyful high vibration work to go into that. And what it took, I can tell you this, it took about 3-4 days. I want to say it took about 4 days of just really devoted working with that to get it to be what it was. And just finally what happened was about the third day, between the third and the fourth day, was it became very conspicuous that it was getting worked on. Um, how to even say that? How do you really tackle that? What do you mean? It got conspicuous? Well, the thing is, as you work on stuff like that, there is other life along the webbing and the connections interdimensionally that is gonna basically sort of clue in to what's going on and have an opportunity, or want to take hold of the opportunity or the chance to weasel its way in, if you want to say attempt to hack it. It, much like what goes on here in the 3D realm, is if you've got an instance of something like a Bitcoin exchange, all right, this is off the cuff, and then you've got those who would hack that Bitcoin exchange to, I don't know what have you, try to siphon off and have an inception moment, stand in between where that Bitcoin exchange is supposed to be legitimately going, and try to sort of take over that, to siphon that off, and hack that, and vampiric, if that's the word, vampiric, sort of siphon that off and pull to its own, what is its station of operation for its own nefarious purposes. Then it's going to do that when it knows that there is a Bitcoin or Ethereum exchange going on. Now it will have opportunity to hack and attempt to hack, and even very, very, very strong antivirus, you might say, interdimensional antivirus. Just the fact that the hacker knows that it's going on is going to want to get in the way of that. So even if there's a strong antivirus, it's not going to be a deterrent to someone who would make attempt. You see where I'm going with that? Now, these are not just Bitcoin hackers, but these are people who, speaking of nefarious, though, very much what they're loyal to and what they align to. How do I even like break into this really? I didn't script this out. This is unscripted. This is me talking to you. Just off the cuff, spontaneous talking to you. Now, I can tell you this is what it is that they're loyal to is called qlippothic. It's called qlippothic. It is, if I could get really specific, what I experienced last night, that was like gunning for me, wanting to assume that the work I did was for it or for them as they sort of cluster together, hive mind together, to connect together to make something big, to try to bully me in my work and what I'm doing. It is called qlippothic. What they're loyal to is qlippothic. What they are loyal to is, if we go a stage deeper, if we can very much skip ahead and save on time here in my time for my recording. This is the big guns of recording. This is my Sony recording here, like thousands of dollars recording. Not to brag, but anyway, when I bring this out, I'm getting to something like a lot bigger. If I can skip ahead now, let's skip ahead and get to it. It is Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley, a lot of the lower people, the lower tier, that's trying to bring this and take over it and bring it to what they are loyal to. They are Aleister Crowley. They are they're loyal to something called the Whore of Babylon, which is the mother of abominations. And the reason that is so hyper relevant is because what they try to come through and take over is, it's very disgusting. It is like interdimensionally just disgusting muck. It blasphemes the good heart, and it blasphemes what those want to manifest here in this earth, for the sake of raising all of our vibrations, all of us, not just those who are initiates and can handle the gross, disgusting stuff and are loyal to the vampire bullshit. You know, it's that's what they're loyal to. That's what they consider their inner court, and they are very much actively against. You've got to hear me. They are very actively against everybody having access to this, and they consider everybody having access to this and everybody's vibrations being raised like a. They consider that a filthy, blasphemous thing in their own right. And I mean I mean RITE. You know, their own rites and their own ceremonies, which are very much sacrificing to and aligning to and collecting pools of the it's etheric, which is funny, etheric, which in their books is also the vril, and this term has been coined very much a long ways back compared to where we are now, but it's just a stitch in time. But around the World War II period, in the German Nazis and the German Black Sun occult started to coin this term vril. Now, the reason I am telling you this is because what they are loyal to, again, I will just sort of repeat it to tie that together. They are very much not into everybody having access. To them, that is blasphemous and vulgar. That's a vulgarity. Everybody, the whole planet's vibrations, raising as one, they try to stand between that. Again, inception, get in between that, like Ethereum exchange. So now are you kind of following a bit better what I'm getting into with you here at my Exoverse channel? Is essentially they want to hack that. They want to hack that for what they're loyal to. And we are just the underlings. And when you get higher and higher and higher and higher up in their courts, or whatever they want to call them, their tiers of their pyramids, is basically that we are the useless eaters. we are the gross production units, and by gross I do mean gross to them, even though obviously like their qlippothic dimensions are disgusting. I mean gross in the sense of like, you know, how you have net gross, you have net income, you have gross income. So we are gross in the sense of we are just the masses, and then we're also gross. We're just gross vulgarity to them because we're not inner courts. So very much what I experienced with the attempted hijacking of the work that you just saw, that I can flash here up in the corner, one of the corners of the work that I just did was a Stargate, very much intentionally dedicated to and worshiping and just the glory and goodness of the true divine, not the gross divine of what they worship, which is called the Ealdaboeth, which is essentially, it's like lion serpent, but it's like the height pinnacle of all their qlippothic stuff that they harness. So, and that is called the Ealdaboeth, or basically another word for it is dragon. If you have a red fallen dragon, that is made of a disgusting, oppressive magical current, that red fallen dragon is also it would look like a lion serpent, a great, massive, blasphemous, gilded, scaled, or you might say scaled, with just, if each scale was almost like a gateway, but it's not a gateway between things that are connected. These scales are like shields off and blocks you off. Sort of Plinko, you're bouncing around between these scales to essentially block you off. Like, that's the hacking of the good etheric exchange between greater connected worlds. And these scales, they're blockages. They are not open gateways, they are closed off. So that this 93 current, which I just straight up call the Aleister Crowley worshippers and the Crowleyan people, can siphon off any works you do they like to assume are theirs. That's so important. I was doing something so beautifully, just stunningly epic and holy, and it didn't even, at that time, it didn't even have much to do with Christ, and it didn't even have much to do with Christ consciousness. It had, probably at that time, it had to do more with liberation in Buddhism. A little bit more was what it looked like. And then even some of the Vedic stuff. So, and only more recently, after deep run-ins with these people that I've survived, has it become more straight up like Christ consciousness, and even very wary of the pitfalls of New Age and what the New Age will suck you into, to where you end right back up in the Crowley current, which is very much shadow, and not Jungian shadow, because Jungian shadow is just, you know, that's, well, it's what you suppress in your own unconscious that you're afraid to own up to, because it is psychotic lots of times, or some other variation of psychotic. And I'm very cool with those people. Those people very much often want to help people out. They're here to help people out in their own way, which can very often be atheistic, or just like, to them, God is life and uncapturable, and they're kind of worried about God. Now that's them. That's on them. I'm not, this is not a video about them. So maybe I'll do a video about them. But, and I'm very much into Jungian archetypes too. That stuff yields so much. No matter what you believe, just spiritually or hybridized to some combination of spirituality and religion, and what you've decided to weave from other religions around the world into your good thing. And, so the thing is, you're not allowed a good thing with these people. You're not even really allowed your own uniqueness in what you want to believe, because they will suck it up into the 93rd current, is what they call it, which is very much about their willpower being done in their fallen kingdom here on the earth. And their kingdom is qlippothic. Qlippothic, aka, and I've done lots of research on this, and I've been sucked up into it and had to figure my way out of this and survive it. It is also called Yuggothian. Now, Yuggoth is a term that relates to H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic horror stories, where you wouldn't have a single isolated monster or vampire, much the way we see in like sci-fi movies, or even The Matrix, where it's really, really big and just it's this conspiracy that consumes the whole world. It's much like Stranger Things or other horror stories. It's not just this isolated monster. The whole dimension that you are in is this overwhelming, just blasphemous contortion, which is why I say, and it ties back into earlier on in this video, which is why I say it ties into the mother of abominations. The Aleister Crowley stuff is just gross, and the people you can get involved with, they do not have humanity's interest at heart. All of them I've ever met have basically been satanic socialists. And and as you get to know them, they're like, oh, we're much, much worse. Much, much worse. That is like the playpen of all this, basically. That's the kiddie field. That's the kiddie intro that gives the Halloween sugar rush candy to get people into the real sickness of all this, which is horribly tragic. And one of the reasons it's horribly tragic, and they giggle when they hear shit like this, one of the reasons it's horribly tragic is because imagine this stuff successfully taking over to where it's interacting with life in the crib. Okay? It's interacting with your grandparents, who are the elders of the tribe, they are the story keepers and the storytellers of the tribe. They're like the shamans of the tribe. Imagine this stuff successfully coming for life in the crib, coming for them as they very much hit almost like their second childhood and their second innocence before they pass on to the great golden thread and travel throughout the galaxy and stuff. Wouldn't you want to give them the best travel, your own grandparents? Wouldn't you want to give them the best set of cosmic circumstances as they traverse this stuff? I'm okay. It's gross to the extent with, I can tell you, I'm okay with that, yeah, stuff gets so alien that it just is so foreign to us, like a lot of the angels in the Bible or what have you, or angels even in other religions, Christian, and even the other big one, the Muslim one, or and then the other religions like Buddhist and Vedic and everything else. Yeah, their angels or their guardians or stuff, as they get really, really powerful, they are designated to deal with stuff that's so beyond us that even they get scary powerful. And that's sort of what my last video is even hinting at, is it can get scary powerful. Now, how much is that meant for? It's not meant to be your best friend to where you're hanging out with it every day and you're invoking it in order to hang out with it every day. You would start to go insane. Now imagine the stuff that's not even guarding you, an intentionally hostile alien to where it wants to crack you open like a nut and just straight up scoop out your astral brain like it's the sweet meat inside the walnut shell, and then that isn't just the gray matter, the astral gray matter. What we're talking about then now too is very much relates with all of your glands. Specifically, then I would go to the pineal gland, or some say pineal gland, however you want to pronounce it. That I don't care about that. So, however you choose to pronounce it. But so I'm okay with things getting so alien that you're creeped out, and you might think it's bad when it's just so alien. I've had encounters like that, and I know about that. So I take that to heart, and I take that into account. Let's see. I take into account that there's stuff like in the Jungian or in the psychologies, those philosophical practices, where there's stuff that you might just be calling a fallen dragon and a demon, because as you unlock the subconscious or the greater unconscious, and it's so strong that you just think it's a demon. I've had stuff like that, and I've worked my way out of stuff like that too. And the reason I say that is because what I am talking about is just so different. We're talking about something nowhere near like that. You know, it is standalone, autonomous, and very hostile towards humanity. Like I'm talking about with last night, with it wanted to take over. It was a pooling of people that are dealing in this 93rd current thing that I'm talking about, where all they care about is their will. And like it says in the rest of Aleister Crowley's books, the few will rule the many. They're not talking about all of us as humanity being best buddies and getting out of this together, even though they're very much socialist, as in totalitarian and satanic. What they are talking about is their inner temple ruling over you, who are the faceless, dumb masses, cow feeding, useless eaters, unit of production, goyim, etc., etc., etc. Now you get it now. So of course, I'm probably saying stuff that you've heard to an extent, but it's important to hear it from me because I do stuff like that jump gate, and I can show you, and it is not all fun and games. It is not easy, cool sailing to me, because by about the third day, they were starting to pick up on my vibrations on the web, and that's another thing I can get to is the web, the spider thing, to the Yuggothian, trans-yuggothian thing relates to these Gnostic voodoo sorcerers, these Gnostic voodoo sorcerers who are very offensive and don't care about you and don't care about your operations and just want to weasel their way in and hack it and say, you learn that from us, even though that's why, like I said, I very much had my own beautiful practice, even though if it wasn't Christ consciousness. It was cosmic, but it was more like along the lines of some Eastern stuff, like some certain vehicles of Buddhism, not even the more apocalyptic ones, and which would be called the lightning vehicle or the Vajrayana. And I've been learning more about I've learned a bit more about Vajrayana as time went on, and it's a good thing I did because I started to learn about these people and their tactics and how they are Black Lodge sorcerers, and they are very much into the spider and what they call the chimera spider or the transhumanist spider or the shape-shifting spider. They're very much into this stuff, and it is not a guardian totem. It disrespects all of your guardians. It disrespects your angels. It disrespects your ancestral ties. It disrespects, once again, imagine life in the crib. As this stuff successfully takes hold of the whole noosphere and the whole scope and breadth and bandwidth of the Earth's greater unconscious and psychology and higher mind. Imagine this stuff taking root. It makes the sci-fi movies look like a goofy game. It makes The Matrix look clumsy. It makes Stranger Things look clumsy. You know, it makes what's the other one that's more recent? It makes The Walking Dead even look clumsy, but that's not the one I was thinking of. But all the sci-fi stuff just looks clumsy, and we are so limited with our ability with our After Effects and Premiere Pro. You saw the video I just made with After Effects and Premiere Pro from decades of being self-taught and getting in touch with this stuff and communicating with this stuff. And as I raise the vibrations of the earth, they try to lie, and they say that I'm the archon, and they try to say that I'm the parasite, and they will try to turn other people against me. Like I said, and I don't mean me, my ego. I mean me, my higher vibration, my higher pulled up self, is I'm accessing that. They want people to doubt and hate that and try to attack and bring it to them. You see what I mean? Because why else would they employ a useless eater production unit? For them, it's for that. It's not just for the corporate economic sense of pooling together and bringing them more stuff and things. Is they own everything, Great Reset, da-da-da-da-da. It has a much more sinister subplot and sub-mechanism, substratum, that we need to be clued into now. Because I can tell you, this whole Great Reset and this whole thing that goes on, that deals with just the 3D economy and this density of the economic and the production unit and the resources, the limited resources. Now you get to the much bigger power supply, which of course would be the sun. Now that's what I said. I just uploaded. What I just uploaded was called a star gate, a soul gate, an SOL soul. The SOL soul, Solil, the sun, Soleil, whatever you want to say, the sun. You know what I mean? So it's just that is the greater. This stuff is a tiny, tiny, tiny window frame within a window frame and within a window frame. And the economic global stuff is just a clumsy tool. The way the very first, I'm sorry, evolutionary reference, I don't know how you feel about evolution, but the very first man who walked the earth was grabbing sticks and dipping it in honey into bees' hives, and then taking those sticks and dipping it into termite and whatever ant hills to pull it out. And that was the very first meat eating, basically, in the very first form of hunting or what have you, before they went on to make bow and arrows and shit and this, that, and the other. So, and again, if you don't believe in that, that's fine. There's a lot of material out there. In fact, it's referenced in 2001, A Space Odyssey, with that giant monolith. The monolith, the megalith, the obelisk. What do we see everywhere? The 93rd current, Aleister Crowley current, ties into the Freemasonic stuff. Aleister Crowley was seen wearing Freemasonic garb. I'm not speaking for all Freemasons, but I can tell you, I'm not speaking for all Freemasons, even at the one at the bottom and the ones at the top who are more sinister. And very much like they've been to that, what you would call at the top has been called the Illuminati, right? So that's sort of a generally accepted among those who are entering into the awakening phase, is plural. So, but what I experienced last night was very much telepathically. This was something I was able to pick up on. Is there was this sort of trying to flag in a sort of, I don't know how you would put this, like metaphorical sense, but not real flagging me down, but sort of like making aware that we have an active node here. Like we have an active node here, almost like I was one of them, and they wanted to assume that I was one of them and that I was bringing them what they need to feed on. That's why you need to be so conscious of this stuff. You need to have this in your scope of awareness and your ability to see front and center, no distraction. You need to be able to see the stuff and even interact with it. Because if you don't interact with, like what I did last night, I'm not saying everyone has to break open After Effects and Premiere Pro and Photoshop and, sit there for decades till they get good at that. That's not what I'm saying. But you've got to be interactive with this stuff in the sense that if you don't, they do, and they already are, to the extent that when you do, they will say, we've got an active node here, let's pool up, let's form up that, again, the Power Rangers reference. What do they call that thing in Power Rangers? But they have their separate vehicles, and they connect up, like transhumanistic style, to try to freak you out, try to scare you, try to confuse you, especially confuse you. So even if you can sit there and say, I'm such a brave interdimensional warrior, I'm not scared, and I've fallen into this pitfall too, especially as a Pisces. One of our downside shadow aspects is we sometimes get confused or what have you. So, and they'll use confusion. Confusion is one of their tactics and strategies too. When you're not being afraid and you're not being like hateful or violent or vengeful or like angry, etc., they will just straight up do their best to confuse you, because that's also one of the things that helps them crack into you. And anywhere there's vulnerabilities and fissures, that's where they start to soak in. And when they soak in one, just like you create vibrations, which vibrations are echoes, is in vibrations like more and more and more and more and more repetitive. You see what I mean? They're fissures where they get one fissure or break or vulnerability, they try to replicate and replicate the fissures and the breaks and the vulnerabilities until the point they've just soaked their way in and are poisoning that seed in the heart of it. And the great seed syllable tends to be described as Om by many people, or Aum, Aum, or Om. So that people have described that as like the heart or the engine seed syllable of the full cosmos, not just the phenomena cosmos, but the full vibration of the cosmos in total. We are talking all the other dimensions that people are just starting to talk about now, that are like the language, that are the cities. Like, remember, the language is one with the city or advanced civilization, is one with the new body, which is the new flesh, which is not really like flesh at all, which is mind, but not even really mind at all, and it's beyond that, and it's soul, made of soul, and it's light, and it's it's not quite angel. It is. Many people have said it's angel. Many people have said it's cosmic ancestors or space brothers, and we're ascending too. But that's so important, because if you're not interacting with it, and if you're not making emotions and doing what it takes, these others who just sit there and obsess over ceremonial magic and how to incept and hack into your etheric, and that's where the word ethereum kind of comes from, your etheric or astral or energetic, dynamic higher self, they will figure out how, they do their best to figure out how to hack it, and they're very good at strategizing the methods. Now, one thing I can get before, some people like to sort of laugh at this in a way, laugh or mock, and that's fine, but this is my favorite beautiful personal blue kyanite, and I had a smaller blue kyanite blade that went here, because I'm not just going to tell you about it without giving you viable solutions that really were helping me out last night as it started to happen. They hate the genuine name and calling upon and allowing you to be open to inhabit, because they are open to inhabit something too, which is what I just talked about with the qlippothic mess. They despise and like collapse under the pressure of, they can't handle the atmospheric spiritual pressure of, they hate Christ. They hate Christ. A lot of them, what you need to know is a lot of them incorporate Buddhist teachings. So, and this is not against Buddhism, this is not against Vedic stuff. A lot of them are into the Buddhist and Vedic stuff because it's non-dualistic. And a lot of them assume that they are doing what they are doing, and their Black Lodge stuff is to transcend the duality. And they think they are inhabiting the transcendence of the duality, which is what I said in the last video, not the art video, but the video before that one, where if you are wanting to inhabit or manifest or embody the good side of a dualistic, like you might say, current or spiritual body or church or temple, this, that, and the other, what you might want to say, they consider you the enemy and a threat to their transcendence of the duality, their assumed and self-proclaimed transcendence of the duality. You get that? So they are threatened by you. But so, and the thing is, what I'm very, very, very careful to point out to people is that crystals in and of themselves aren't the thing. Crystals in and of themselves won't have a ton of effect either. It might have some effect, and as you aim your attention into it, it might have better effect. But crystals, what crystals really are is they are life, like I tell people, animal, vegetable, mineral. So they are life, but what they really, what they do is they amplify. That's why, like I tell people too, after that, is crystals are in your computers, they're in your laptops, your towers, your cell phones. They're used to power up CERN. So that's another whole volume series of videos that, they power up all this Stargate tech. They power up everything like that in the modern technological world for a pretty damn good reason. The memory, and they amplify. They hold insane memory and they amplify. If crystals weren't that big of a deal, why is this whole time crystal synthesizing thing just blowing up huge to where it can be harnessed for just insane stuff? Speaking of interdimensional, outside of known dimensional reasoning and capabilities. So, so we get back into it. They thought that they wanted to perceive me as a node. And I'm checking this out real quick. Now, the reason that is crucial and so huge is the reason they wanted to say, we got us an active node. We got us an active node, guys. I can't whistle right now. I can whistle, but I don't want to. But, they whistle like we got us, not really, but we got us an active node here, guys. Let's gang up. And they're like an interdimensional gang. They are very much, even when I used to hang around with these people, they called themselves like the masters of the universe, they called themselves cosmic gangstas. Literally, they were calling themselves cosmic gangstas, especially in the psytrance part where I first started to get into it, onto the Thelemites, onto the Freemasons, and the Gnostic Voodoo Black Lodge people that I probably survived by the skin of my teeth, but the skin of my teeth was like my ego definition. But because I did it all, my higher self definition is that it just happened. And if it happened, then it happened resolutely. Absolutely. You see what I mean? So, higher self and what the greater cosmos and the life thereof therein had in store for me. But what I wanted to talk about is with me being referred to as the active node is absolutely an attempt at a shakedown of me and the Stargate tech that I was just using for the vibration field uplifting of as many people as I can. And when you do that, as you release it, it's true that there's a moment of vulnerability, and there's a moment for lots of people who are just starting to do that. Is their high vibrations are like, whoa, what's going on? It feels like my high vibrations just went out away from me. So does that mean I'm getting things wrong? It's not that you're getting things wrong. It's just the high vibration that you've built up. You have designated intentionally for not maintaining for your own bridge between higher self and the maintenance or upgrade of even your ego casing. Your ego, and your ego is not just a container. Yourself is not just a container, but these people absolutely just think of yourself as just only a container. You are a consciousness container to them, and that's it. And as such, you are a consciousness container who, through transhumanistic mastery, you can be kicked out of yourself. Which is why I say the Matrix movie is clumsy. Stranger Things is clumsy. All of it is it's sort of comical. Even though it's like, whoa, 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 that stuff is so scary. As much as that stuff might seem scary, and it gets a scare out of, it gets an entertainment scare. But if you're not a critical thinker, it gets a scare to where you are, even just through that stuff, the mind accepts the reality. Which is why I then tell people, and this is a different video, be careful with your video games and your virtual realities and what you're doing, because the mind just accepts stuff. You see? The mind will take it as real. And when the mind just takes it as real, that is very much a staging point for stuff that's beyond you, to where if you're not in really great touch with, connected with, your higher resonant self being, and then what's beyond that to the bridge work, the cosmic causeways with ancestors, higher self, and then your angels or your just cosmic guardians, however you name them, mysteries, this, that, and the other, is that it's, and absolutely, they won't just be attempting shakedown, they will be very successfully shaking you down and draining the loosh, as come to find out it's called. And it's weird. Those people with the Atlanta Psytrance, et cetera, as I first started getting into that, they were saying loosh. And I was like, what's loosh? And I forgot to look it up till recently. So, but one thing last night, and one of the things that clued me in, was I was seeing the Thelemites are very narcissistic and very proud of themselves. And one thing I was seeing is like creepy pictures, creepy imagery in my mind's eye being like forced on me of Aleister Crowley, especially the one where he's like, it's one of his creepiest pictures, and he's like trying to look creepy on purpose, and he's doing like some kind of a side claw with his hand, this creepy shit. And I saw that, and that's when I really clued in. And again, that's just, these people aren't cool, and it's not cool stuff. Stranger Things is a cool show. Walking Dead is a cool show. This stuff it inhabits whole dimensions. It's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. And I tell people this stuff is just a tiny, tiny window in a window in a window that looks cool, so they stop glorifying it, and they stop trying to help manifest it and just thinking, ooh, Satan, mano cornito, it's not like that. Imagine your little kids waking up from dreams, the life in your crib. That's what I'm saying. Or your older people as they start to slip into their second childhood, which often includes dementia or Alzheimer's. Imagine them just succumbing to an all-consuming dimension of it. So what I wanted to talk about is that Aleister Crowley picture, and then these gross abominations. So they don't just say the few will rule the many, etc., etc. They worship something called the Whore of Babylon, which is / also called the Mother of Abominations. You see what I mean? And what they do is they look for people with unique features and qualities who are misfits, and if they won't convert to their thing and be used by them as a consciousness container, then they just crack them open and try to drain them and kick them out of their own, see what I mean? Their own selves in total. I'm talking to where ego becomes possessed or obsessed and helpless, hopeless, useless, and the higher self is just completely belongs to them. So, and it's sad. I'm not bringing you this stuff to scare you, because that's one thing they want, is any sort of frightened, violent anger, which is something that I try to deal with. Hopeless confusion, especially just hopelessness and confusion, those low vibrational states is where the fissures that they replicate start to connect up, and then it gets real unpleasant. And so one thing we are doing, the active nodes like me, one thing that the active nodes, if they want to go ahead and call us that, well, they can't stand and they flee the unchained potent name and sympathetic, resonating to and syncing up with the resonance and presence of Christ authentically from the core of your being, exuberant, resonating, and what's the other word? Exuding, fulfilling, filling those dimensions. They hate it. They can't live in it. They hate it. They can't live. They collapse in that pressure. So, but right now what's going on that they hate too, with more and more active nodes, as they like to call, is just the shutting down. It's the shutting down of the current 93, and it ties into the Great Reset and stuff. And what's going on with, they have very limited reach. They can get beyond 3D into 4D, and even to an extent to where they are at the top of their pyramids of the qlippothic fifth dimensional, but they start to realize that they are wardens of a gross nastiness prison at that point, and that they're living in a delusion. And what's going on is it's closing now, and these active nodes that they would normally crack open to drain are starting to gain confidence to where they are just shutting down the Aleister Crowley people in that current. the Aleister Crowley current. You don't even have to give it the respect that they command. Oh, this is the 93 current. It's the 93 current of willpower, because it's just their willpower over the useless eaters and the masses of consciousness containers. They don't see your life as sacred. They don't see the life in the crib as sacred. They don't see the elderly, your elders who are experiencing their second childhood in innocence. And just, in a way, that can be joyful. When it's hard to explain, but they're not succumbing to the anger of Alzheimer's and stuff, which often does happen towards the twilight. But then they're usually met with a merciful transition. And just that comes to a closing, and they can move on to the next great thing that God has in store. So we are collapsing the Thelemites' magic. That is very much happening right now, and they hate to see that and feel that. They're like screaming about it, because they thought, they very much had delusions that they were going to be in charge of it all. And they think this one person named Lee Donovan, who I used to be friends with, she was a person who consecrated me into the Gnostic current that turned out to be nastiness. And just they are the ones who started. That's when I started to realize shit was heavy duty wrong, and there was stuff I was going through that was not supposed to be, and it felt schizoid. But I was able to climb up on top of it, get on top of it, and get my shit in line and all figured out, to where I was able to come up with a battle plan and an awareness and implement through steps and sane logical bullet points. Some people laugh at sane logical bullet points. This is a sane logical bullet point, just part of it all. How I was going to answer to it and bring myself back and get back my good heart. But so this kid named Aran, he would call himself Aran too, like the Celtic god of the underworld, Aran. But Aran and Lee and company, Alan Greenfield, and lots more were involved. And just since I ever got involved with them is just to this day I experience them still trying to weed into who I am metaphysically and spiritually before I ever met them. That's important, because who I am before I ever met them, they want to claim. That's one of the main themes of this whole satanic, not really Gnostic, but going under a thinly veiled guise of Gnostic. And it's really just satanic and socialist and loyal to the gross dragon. Some people might say there's some dragons that are regal and they're fire serpents just like the seraphim, etc., etc., etc. Okay, fine. That's you. And I get some people saying that, but you have authority to bind the Aleister Crowley people in their grossness and misunderstanding, and their will to vampirically take over who you were before you ever met them. Very much like what happened with me. I had this very beautiful spiritual practice, very beautiful cosmic metaphysical sphere, you might say, understanding, being, resonance, and they decided, because they gave me their hot points, I go through this whole thing. It is a huge can of worms. I go over the whole thing in fine detail of fine detail of fine detail in Station Mercury. Now, if you listen to Station Mercury, I go over what I mean by hot points, which are the Masonic degrees too. And anything good you had going before you ever met them, they will assume just belongs to them now. You see what I mean? So yeah, if you want to kind of let that sink in a bit more, the good spiritual things that you had built up, they just assume belongs to them. Once you get the hot points and the Masonic degrees, and Alan Greenfield, who is friends with Michael Berdio, who basically gave birth to what is now the modern Gnostic voodoo, which is just another slang term for satanic, clip-off humping, leg humping, gross people. And barely, you can hardly even call them people. I know that sounds kind of mean, but based on what they put good people through and the trauma they're willing to do to get their end game goal is just no, not on my watch, not based on what I have to offer and I can do before I ever met them. That they very much want to assume is them, that they want to take over and be like, we have you held to a contract, read the fine print, which is almost like, it's even a multi-dimensional fine print. So they're very much, they're like, in a telepathic sense, they're like, read the fine print, and they attempted to hijack my Stargates, on about the third night of the working that I did that I uploaded here. So all this is very real. And it's like a cosmic smear campaign, and it's like how flies desecrate in order to be able to ingest and digest. They desecrate all over everything with just this overwhelming dimensional nastiness that, again, even the sci-fi media can't begin to describe. It's just comical as they try to begin to describe it. So, and if it wasn't that way, they would have a hard time looshing, which is draining through the fissures created through fear, hopelessness, helplessness, confusion, brain fog, spiritual fog, hatred, violence, which is why all the racism is so important, which is why all the division through woke is so important. Woke is not the answer to it. Woke is being harnessed. Woke is Moloch. I've seen it. Also, if you've seen my stuff here and you think, well, his third eye, there's something to his third eye, then please believe woke is basically Moloch. If you just slowly, I swear I'm gonna make this in After Effects. I might have lost some viewers, but I've got to get this out there because it is truth. But if you take the M, or if you take the W of woke and you just rotate it, and you make it the M, and you take, I know Moloch is spelled CH, but if you were to take that part of the K and divide it through the line, it comes out like, take the line of the K in woke and take it out and extend it out, and then just double it, you have the H. And then that is, okay, it takes a bit of creativity. It takes a little bit of a stretch of imagination. Oh. But if you take that C, that's part of the K. Just is shaped like the K, like the rune. The rune looks like that. Anyway, it's called Kanaz, or what have you, Kanaz, some people call it. And it looks like that part of the K if you just take it away from the line. So, it's relevant. It is what it is. It's relevant. You don't want to agree with me? Cool. I'm not holding you down. I'm trying to give you the material that's the exact opposite of holding you down. So I hope some of you can appreciate that. But, and what else went on is, it's like, you have to choose to see your pineal gland is quite powerful. So this is almost where, as we're reaching the end of this, what I wanted to say, if we reach toward the end of this, is just your pineal gland is so powerful, you don't have to sit there and imagine yourself with a lightsaber or a crystal sword or some other metaphysical weapon. You don't need the weapon stuff. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, even interdimensionally. And sometimes even I've sort of projected myself, wanted to, from my ego, project to my higher self that I have some sort of like an interdimensional weapon set, but you don't need it. This is what we all need to realize as we upgrade and jump to the next dimensional like platform, essentially. The unhinged, even where it's not hinged to anything at all. But you work with crystallizing higher self, crystallizing with your mind's eye, shattering the calcifications of the crystal capabilities of the pineal gland, whatever you want to say, and your other glands, which your greatest gland or engine that powers you is your heart. Your next greatest would be like your pineal gland, or essentially like your synapses firing. is that would be your mind. Non-local is the next great motor. Is your radar antenna or receiver. So so you need to realize that, and you need to embody that and confidently know this, because that's what they want to shake you about. That's what they want to shake you about. And when they shake and shake and shake with the negative vibrations, it is just like flies. That's like the vibration. It's like flies upheaving all over what you're doing. That's beautiful crystallization in order to be able to consume, all consuming. So you can melt down their stuff. Just choose what to see. Choose what to see. You decide very intentionally what to see. And it can take work, and it can be a bit frustrating. It takes a bit of patience, to a lot of patience sometimes. It can take the whole night sometimes, to where you're up all night. And that's what sucks, is many have a 9 to 5 where they're like, I've been up all night trying to deal with this, and I have to go to work the following day, and that doesn't help with being able to deal with it. That's one of the ultimate tragedies of this 3D rat race, life board, monopoly board, illusory structure, hologram, in dark side of the hologram that we are all just being sucked into. So, but I also, that's the thing, is after that good working that I did, and it was so important that I did that good working, right with everything I've been talking about with these gateways and the limitations that would be attempted to be installed upon us with the Saturn retrograde. And it's okay if you're not into astrology. I'm not into astrology, which might seem contradictory. You might be like, John, that's one of the main things you talk about here. It's because I know the way astrology is harnessed to actually do bad things to us. So right before, my voice is starting to get a bit thinned out here from going on and on, but I just, because of the work that I did with that Stargate, I'm here to tell you, and I'm happy to tell you, that even not my ego and what I wanted to do with my ego, my various connections, both higher self and beyond higher self, to cosmic ancestors or cosmic angels, and my true alignment to Christ, and rather than ego, and like, oh, I'm so great with my interdimensional lightsaber, is it's basically, it's, in a way, you give it up, but you give it up to get back, and you give it up to be true and resonate true being, the way, the truth, and the life. You are resonating life. So beyond my ego, I, my higher self, in the network and friendship allies that I was working with, were able to melt down. We melted down Aleister Crowley. And of course they hated that. We melted down Aleister Crowley to like a Pillsbury Doughboy Crowley astral joke. Almost like he looked very much like Plato-y, and like the Thelmites would want to be like, no, you can't do that. That's not happening. Why not? Why not? We're here to do our wills, aren't we? No, they're very much here to just enact their own qlippothic, what seems like transcendence of the qlippoth. So, but I melted down higher self again, Christ light, Christ consciousness, Christ assistant, ally, but I still fought too. So many people are like, oh, you need to, see, they misunderstand it, and they're like, oh, so you needed Jesus to handle things for you? And that's such a gross misunderstanding of it, and they are gross, and all they get is the gross side of things. That's why they're not part of it, and they have a hard time withstanding the pressures of it. So the Pillsbury Doughboy, Aleister Crowley looking, was just scared off, and I ripped in half. I wasn't trying to. This was not my ego trying to. But there was an incident where, like, ripped in half, just a satanic geisha creature, again, ripped in half. And I've been doing this more and more when I have to. I don't invoke it, and I don't do incantations to do this stuff because I think it's a joke. it is dangerous, and there's certain incidents that you have to, just like you don't, if I can say it, you don't just whip the lightsaber out for fun and go out looking for Sith. Why would you do that? You know what I mean? To use a metaphor. Again, that's what I'm trying to get past and get you past, is interdimensionally, you don't need to invoke weapons, because that's still an ego-driven construct for the most part. So, for the most part. So, but not my ego. Because, again, when your ego is not involved, and your ego is not doing it, and it's good to have a healthy, confident ego, but beyond that, you will know, because just your healthy crystallized pineal gland over the calcifications to weigh it down and calcify, and just this nasty grit and qlippothic density, when you break and shatter that, just beyond the ego stuff, just you decide to see the blessings. You decide to telepathically speak, but with your mind's eye, you're speaking with, you might say, your throat chakra or what have you, but you're speaking beyond that even too. So even that's just a construct that we use to try to wrap it all up in a neat little package where we can describe it. But so beyond is just you decide to see how blessed you are, and you live and resonate the truth of your blessing, and you share it with others. You share it with others, and that's when you'll be okay. That's when you can be more confident that you will make it to the other side of this, no matter how gross and overwhelming it might get. And so, for God's glory. For God's glory. Like what I uploaded. Like I said, this is for God's glory. Very specific. It's good to specifically state that with your stuff. So this Aleister Crowley astral golem just got thrashed last night. And this satanic geisha goat-like figure, sort of like goat, it didn't have the typical big sheep ram's horn, but that's one you might see. And I'm not saying, if you see a goat, you go out and kill it. That's not what this is about. But there's something else that just happens to be attached to the overall dimensional nastiness, you see. So, not my ego, and that's important. And it's like, almost in a way, I saw someone else say you're choosing what to hallucinate. But that was a very sort of, how should I say this? That was a very humanistic, still not quite understanding. It's not choosing what to hallucinate, but it's seeing beyond the ego-driven means to own interdimensionally and describe even what all is going on interdimensionally in a way that sort of not quite betrays it, but just it's inefficient. It's kind of a deficiency which can kind of happen. And these Aleister Crowley people are worshippers of the deficiency. And that deficiency is called the Great Fallen dragon-like figure, serpentine figure, where the scales of it, the sheer magnitude of scales of it, are not open gateways. They are illusory mirrors that you smack into. They're very much ceilings. There are ceilings that you smack into, and the true who get deceived will just shatter themselves on it and meet with tragic hurt. So, but yeah, but it's like I said, I just want to reiterate, but it's deciding resolutely what you, not your lower ego you, but even your higher, beyond just the you trap, but you're still you, and you are more beautiful, not less beautiful, and you're not gone. Because that's what a lot of these forces who are blaspheming and using it against, that's why they want to hack the Ethereum trade, so to speak. They want you gone. So, because they think they are going to inherit through being true to the satanic, you see? So, so not my ego, important, but you choose what you hallucinate, okay, I can kind of sort of accept that, but I want to reiterate and clarify what that really is. Deciding resolutely what you see under the true light is you are crystallized, and you are not calcified, and you're not misunderstanding. So, and again, I'm okay with that it can get so alien that it's scary. And I'm okay with archetypal forces that are so huge and epic in their vast scopeness that it can be all-consuming. I get that stuff. And again, this is not that. What I'm describing, it is something else. It is far more sinister and autonomous and all-consuming and wants to eat you. And for lack of a better term, and it's directly, willfully sinister, and it involves those who assume when you might have the misfortune, but it is also meant to be because it happens, those who you might meet later on assume that any spiritual practice you had going before them, it now just belongs to them. And you need to be able to confront and come out on top. So that's why I'm doing this stuff. Not because I'm so great or such a badass or look so cool and hip and groovy, etc., etc. I'd rather not, honestly. Well, I mean, I don't know if I'd rather say that, but what I would rather be doing music, and I would rather be doing my cosmic galaxy art. I would rather be doing more of that stuff. So, but I'm doing this because I know what's at stake. I know what's at stake. And again, just the Monopoly boards and the life boards are all comical. The Matrix movies are comical. The Stranger Things shows are comical. And all the other stuff that just tries to hint at it are comical. And it's just a way to even seduce those with a sick mind who don't realize that it's all just comical. And it seduces those with a sick mind to try it out and still be loyal to it. And be like, that was really cool. You know, that I think that's cool. I think that's badass. It's a great alternative to church. Because church is so cheesy. And I don't go to church. And much of what's going on in those buildings is just a farce. And will lead you right back to them. And has betrayed us all as humanity anyway. And I will tell you, a lot of the pastors and the priests and clergy should be removed. And they should be spanked with a studded paddle, just the way the nuns have spanked good people with a studded paddle. And I don't know, I'm trying to be light and kind of humorous, and even that can help too. Is you want to be humorous like my beautiful, incredible twin flame, one and only light of my life, by Jessica Divine, like we just talked about, and like basically is just the whole. I'm sorry. I was thinking about Jessica, and I think about Jessica all day, every day. So she's my baby. We are one. We are twin flames like this. But so what I wanted to mention, real quick, in closing, essentially, is just the fact that the church, a lot of what's going on in the church has actually messed up good people. And a lot of what is, you might say, the feminine divine or the bride is not happening inside the brick wall buildings, because the pastor should be removed and the nun should be removed, the priest should be removed. Just all of it has betrayed us and just killed it and intentionally calcified the real, temple, the real holy living temple, the life and the truth and the way, true to it all, being more and more personified and resolute and resolved to resonate here in this life. But yeah, like Jessica and we were just having a nice, beautiful conversation, sacred, about how a sense of humor, a clean sense of humor can also help with what would otherwise be inception and hacking and creating fissures and vulnerabilities to weasel its way into your aura, if you want to call it aura, light body, your right to resonate as a sovereign, cosmic, fulfilled being. And a sense of humor can help too.